been a while since I posted on this channel right here. I've been posting a lot on my other channel, Clearly Reviews, but this channel right here is going to be the longer form content. I'm going to start doing some reaction videos, documentaries, and interviews on here that are definitely going to tie in to speaking about why some of the things that we're seeing in the market today are no good, actually very dangerous. And I feel like this is a very good intro video to that. Today we're going to be speaking about how China is actually trying to poison Americans through cannabis. This might sound very far-fetched. This might sound very dystopian, but hear me out. If you watch it to the end, I think that you will be able to have either an agreement or a reason why you disagree. So whichever one it is, let me know down in the comments. Do you agree with this? Is this something that you have been seeing for a while and you're just now seeing someone actually put it into context where it is going to make sense for the masses? Or is this something that you just fully disagree with and you think your voice needs to be heard about that? Let me know down in the comments, but let's get into it.
Is this a business that they've generated to procure more real estate in the United States? Or are they poisoning the marijuana? Or, you know, it could be anything. China has so many angles on us.
Yes, and yes.
What am I missing?
So the cannabis that they're producing more often than not has pesticides on it, banned substances. There are 13 or 14 different pesticides that have been identified at Chinese grows in California that are prohibited for use in the United States on anything.
And these are indoor?
They are indoor grows. In the Siskiyou forest in Northern California, they have what are called hoop houses. We can find the YouTube video of some people who have flown drones over them, but they're like city-size areas where they put up these hoop houses, which are greenhouses, and they'll grow marijuana in there, and then they'll set up like a 55-gallon drum, and they'll fill it with sawdust, which is a mixture of all of these different herbicides, pesticides, and fungicides, many of which have been imported from China and have no legal use in the U.S., and they'll put a wick in them and burn them. And the smoke fills the hoop house and coats the marijuana and ensures that you don't have any product loss to mold. Because that's a big problem with growing marijuana is the heat, humidity. You're going to get mold. You're going to lose your marijuana. So this is like dropping off, Agent Orange or a nuclear bomb that's going to kill everything except for your marijuana. And they're doing this on.
So what you're hearing right here is they actually are crop dusting it. They're basically causing this smoke reaction that is going to layer the flower. Obviously, this is going to kill off mold. It's going to kill off pests potentially, but what is it going to do to humans? If it is able to kill the pests, if it's able to kill the mold, the humans have no chance of having just a safe ride when they're consuming this. So it is something that is obviously not talked about for a good reason. It is something that is one of those hidden secrets that a lot of these growers do. And a lot of growers have different recipes on how to get this part done. There's so many other things that people are adding into their gardens to prevent pests, to prevent all of these different things that are somewhat natural. But there's also natural ways of going about getting rid of them. There's praying mantises that will kill off all of the pests. Praying mantises are kings of the garden. They will kill all the pests and they will continue to fertilize the plant. So that might not be an easy task to do when you have a huge, massive facility, but you see this in some of these smaller grows where there's people using praying mantises to kill off any unwanted pest. And having a good pest like a praying mantis goes a long way. Having any of these flies, have any of these gnats that are in your plant when the person goes to consume it is a very bad thing. It's going to cause a lot of bad reactions. So this is definitely very interesting to hear put into these words. Of course, a lot of people will still want to skip this one.
and later consumed along with whatever crazy Chinese pesticides have been applied to it, because there's not a lot of testing on it. And if it's exported across state lines, that's inherently illegal. So whoever takes custody of it after that, whoever sells it after that, they're already breaking the law. And there's not really going to be any recourse for a consumer who finds out that they bought illegal weed in a state where it's prohibited, and later they find out that it's got pesticides in it or something. They're probably never going to know. And this stuff has spread so far throughout smoke shops and head shops in the United States that we don't really know where it's being grown. You can't possibly know where it's being grown. The supply chain is so distributed.
So if you listen to what he's saying, he's basically saying that people will never really find out, which makes a lot of sense. Why would you find out if you bought it in an illegal state? How are you going to go get it tested? If you got it from a place that you think is secure, like a smoke shop, you're probably never going to really question if it was tested. Most people think that just because they're buying stuff from a dispensary means that the dispensary never makes a mistake. It's just wrong. It's just wrong. There's so many situations where dispensaries are selling something that isn't what it's actually labeled to be. I even went to Harbor House in Massachusetts and got their grape runts. Ended up being grape gas. Crazy, but there's proof. There's proof in the pudding. So it's one of those things, you really don't know exactly if the stuff is clean unless you grew it. And still then, I would say there's a lot of learning to do. But when it comes to consumers getting stuff from a street vendor, you really never know. So a lot of people wouldn't really assume that to be the cause of any of the symptoms that they may be having. But definitely something that is possible, for sure is possible, when you are consuming things that have never been tested or are going through different things that might be legal, because technically, legally, at least in Massachusetts, there's legal levels of mold, legal levels of PGRs, and there's legal PGRs. Like, that's not good. That's basically, there's legal steroids that you could give the plant to increase the yield, increase the money that you can make off it. That's the whole scheme, is you are trying to increase different things that will in turn be able to get you more money. So it's all a game that is hard to learn, very hard to learn, unless you have the patience to sit through some moments that aren't going to be comfortable. So I completely overlooked what he was actually just saying there. He's saying that they're burning Mylar bags. They're burning plastic bags to cause this reaction. That's no good. That's not good for you to breathe in when you go back into this garden. So I'm very sure that they're probably burning it, leaving the stuff in there for an extended period of time until the remains of the smells, the remains of the smoke are gone. So this way of getting rid of mold, in my opinion, would almost cause mold. If you leave undried flour out for an extended period of time, that's how mold grows. So, of course, supposedly this is getting rid of the mold temporarily, maybe. I don't know. I can't believe that this would ever be a long-term way of getting rid of mold. I just can't imagine that's the way to do it. If it was, then why wouldn't they be using that in houses? Is it because it would cause cancer? Is it because it would cause different health effects if you were to use that in houses that have mold? I assume so, right?
So the first thing I would say is, yes, it furthers the CCP's goals to have as much cheap, crappy, poisoned pot as possible on the streets, as widely available as possible. So instead of being, fit and, patriotic and ready to join the military, you're sitting on your couch smoking poison pot all day, playing Xbox. Like, you can see how that furthers the CCP's goal. But they all...
What you're hearing right here is they're basically saying the CCP, the Communist Party of China, I think the CCP thing I'm definitely getting wrong, but it's basically them referring to the Communist Party of China. This is definitely something that a lot of people might not want to listen to, because a lot of people will believe that everywhere else besides America is good. It's obviously just not the case. It's obvious that there's never going to be good with everyone. There's always going to be some bad actors in anywhere you go. There's a lot of people that think you can move away from your hometown and you're just going to be in paradise for the rest of your life. It's not the case unless you know how to network and find those communities of people that you're actually going to have fun with, like-minded conversations with, and actually be able to enjoy life with. It's very hard to do that when you are always looking for chaos and trying to cause trouble for ones around you. It's something we see in America today, but when they tie in the CCP, that is something that very much interests me, because of course there is a lot of people in my age range that are just not fit for war. Say, if worst case scenario, if we really did have to go to war or protect our homeland, it's not going to go as we wish. There's going to be a lot of difficulties that we have to hurdle over, and one is definitely the factor of people are smoking stuff that is just making them lethargic and kind of stupid in a way. It's kind of making people more dulled down and a lesser version of what they could be. It's just a fact. It's a fact. It's a scary thing to say because it's so true, but when people are very dumbed down and they are smoking this stuff that is $50 a zip, but it's just straight trimmings, it's straight trimmings of stuff that were just never good, or just stuff that was just completely mass produced by these Chinese slaves, it's going to cause a lot of bad reactions. There's going to be a lot of different things that are going to cause that reaction, such as the chemicals that they're using to actually grow this. But there's also just a very old amount, or there's a lot of stuff that is out there that is very old and is going to have more of a CBN type of reaction. That is a different molecule that comes off the cannabis plant that is better to give you effects that are going to be for sleep or for hunger. And that is something that is what THC actually morphs into over time. THC morphs into CBN over time, just like a pickle or a cucumber turning into a pickle, just like any of these other plants that fermentate and turn into a different plant, turn into a whole different thing overall. At all, it's amazing. Let me stop speaking over myself though. This is definitely something that we see when it comes to THC and CBN. You can look it up. I've done videos on it, and it's very, very interesting because older weed will always give you this very stony, laid back, just hungry effect where you just aren't going to necessarily be able to be as active. When you smoke some nice fresh cannabis, you are going to be bouncing off the walls, just hyper, very hyper until you crash. Of course, if it's one of those things that's a hybrid or a indica dominant thing, you're going to crash eventually. But that glory of the euphoria at the beginning from fresh plants is something that is unmatched. It's beautiful, and it is something that a lot of people don't get to experience, and it's sad. But let's get back to
But they also have established a network that is multimodal, in that some of these products are distributed in the form of vape cartridges. So they're just they're like nicotine vapes or traditional cannabis vapes, where it's just a little canister that's got some oil in it. And that's the extracted, refined 99% THC version of the product. You create that by stuffing a metal tube or a glass tube full of cannabis leaf or cannabis bud, and you blow butane gas or some other kind of gas through it, and all of the oils dissolve out into that gas, including the pesticides and fungicides, by the way. Out the bottom comes the pure THC, which is then used for gummies, vapes, whatever kind of product. But the end result is that you've got these little teeny weeny canisters that you can sell at hemp shops, head shops, wherever, all over the United States. And people are going to pay to have them distributed. People are going to pay to buy them, and they're going to put them up to their mouths and they're going to suck on them because they think they're going to get high. And if you were a planner for the Chinese military and you wanted to do something bad to the United States, what better network for the distribution of a chemical or biological weapon than a network that's going to self-distribute these little vials, millions of them, to 10,000 different little tobacco shops and head shops all across the United States, and people are going to suck it directly into their lungs. So there's a lot of...
So I got one to show you guys. Look at this. Not exactly sure what is wrong with this one. Not 100% sure, but I wanted to demonstrate what these look like and how small they are. This is one of the easiest ways to import anything into the States. If you have something this small, it's very easy to get it through mailing, and especially if it doesn't have any THC in it at all. If it's something that is either just a tobacco vape, nicotine vape, I should say, or if it's something that's labeled as cannabis, but it's only maybe CBD at most, if it's one of those things that isn't going to set off those alarms, it's very easy to get it into the States. So what they're doing is definitely contaminating these. It is definitely something that we've seen for a long period of time. It's not really a secret, and it's definitely not a secret that China has grows in Maine, they have grows in Arizona, they have grows all over the States. And why is this? Is it because they just want to beat us out on prices? Is it because they always wanted to do it for the dirt cheap amount of almost a price that wouldn't even make sense? Because there's a lot of these Chinese plugs out in the game that have always been known to be the biggest, the guys at the top of the mountain, where you could get the cheap work for very, very cheap. So why is this? Is this just because they always wanted to be that top dog in that part of the game? Maybe they just always wanted to cut everyone's throat and be the ones making just a little bit just to cause chaos. Does that make sense? Does it make sense for them to break their own pockets just to take a lot of risk? I don't think so.
Shops all across the United States, and people are going to suck it directly into their lungs. So there's a lot of hypotheticals and potentials there, but it certainly exists, and that's the network that they've built. And in the meantime, they're accruing hundreds of billions of dollars to do whatever they want with, to support human trafficking, to support bringing things across the border, to support buying up properties in New Hampshire, to support buying up real estate next to military bases.
Are the Chinese involved in the hemp stuff too?
Yes.
They are.
Yes. It's really all one, I guess one system or one network. There's not a lot of differentiation between the hemp and the cannabis. There's cannabis that's being passed off as hemp. There's hemp that's being passed off as cannabis. And once they call it blowing it out. So once you take, in Oklahoma, you can grow a huge field of hemp legally, harvest it, and you blow it out by putting the plant biomass into a canister, passing the gas through it to do gas extraction. And then the end result is all of this oil. And there's a couple of different cannabinoids that are in that oil. With hemp, the most prominent one is CBD. And you can convert that CBD into THC. They call those products conversion products, and then that THC is indiscernible from the THC that you would get from growing cannabis at a flop house in Dexter, Maine.
So one thing he kind of skips over right here when he's speaking is the fact that they are spraying a lot of hemp. They're spraying it with terps. They're spraying it with God knows what to make it smell and appear to be cannabis, because hemp is very similar looking. It's not necessarily the same as what we are trying to buy when we are going to buy cannabis, but it is something that is very similar in a lot of ways. Of course, this is something that a lot of people get over on the people with. The fact that a lot of people have no clue of how to tell the difference between CBD and THC on a mass on if you ask most people who are casual smokers what CBD even is, most people wouldn't be able to give you an answer. And that would lead a lot of people to kind of relate them both into being the same thing when they feel those two different effects. Because what CBD is only body. It's something that's very good for pain, very good for allowing you to go to sleep. It is something that is very good for just calming your body, whereas THC is psychoactive. It's something that is going to make you see certain lights to be different, which is euphoria. It's going to make you potentially have different experiences through different strains that are going to be more psychoactive, which is not great for everyone. Some people that have mental illnesses aren't going to be able to deal with the THC effects very well, versus them if they were to have CBD, it's going to calm them down, it's going to make them feel at ease and just make their body feel just peaceful when sometimes it wouldn't. So for certain ailments, certain ones are very, very good, but then certain ones are also very bad for certain ailments. It's something that is very bad that the masses don't know this, because it leads a lot of people to have bad reactions when they go and try the one that they shouldn't have. When realistically, if they had the knowledge of which one is which, it would lead a lot of people to have a lot of peaceful moments. But to relate back to what he was just saying, the fact that they are spraying it, they're spraying a lot of hemp with just terps and just selling it for unholy amounts.
Basically the same thing, but our politicians and our regulatory system treats them like they're completely different. Like Representative Comer just the other day put out a statement about the value of the hemp industry and how important hemp farmers are the backbone of America. And I'm sure that there are a couple of guys who are growing hemp in an honest way to use it for industrial products, but the most of the hemp is being used for consumable hemp products.
How long ago was it that you found out about the 270 homes that the Chinese are using in Maine?
That was in 2022.
How many are there now?
Probably 500,
500?
maybe more.
More?
So I'm actually not very, very happy about this part right here. He definitely is speculating when he says that there's now double the amount. That's definitely a speculation that could lead a lot of people to start to question everything else he said. But I want to highlight the fact that there is many, many cases of this in Maine. This is something that's been proven so many times. So you could even go back and look at one of the videos I did about this, or you could go through YouTube and see all of the different situations, because this is something that's been happening for a while. So don't be concerned about him kind of speculating about the numbers. I thought that was a weird thing to do. I wouldn't have done that. I think that I would have just said, obviously it's risen, but it's something that I can't just tell you exact because I don't know. So I do hate when people kind of like just try to overemphasize what they're trying to say. They try to the word's not coming to me, but they try to make it seem bigger than it is, which maybe it is. Maybe it's just massive, but it's definitely real. That's for sure.
So it's over.
Yeah, and it's not just houses where they're growing marijuana. We found boarding houses, places that are set up for a large number of guys to eat, sleep, and shit in between cycles, going out to tend to the marijuana plants.
That was in 2022?
Yeah.
Or 2022, you found 270 homes. Now there's well over 500.
Yeah, so in 2022, that was when the memo came out revealing the existence of these locations. And in the ensuing years, we began a process of, based on the patterns we found on the address that we obtained from the reporter who first published that leaked memo, we expanded our investigation, looking at property records, real estate records, tax records, electrical records, to identify more of these places, and then set about driving, probably more than 10,000 miles around the state of Maine to inspect these spaces, try to talk to these people, talk to their neighbors, and see if we could, uh, you know, put some reality around this story that had come out.
Were these properties all already there and you discovered them, or are these new properties that they're buying? What I'm getting at is, it's been what, 3 years since 2022 now. So you're saying there's over 500 of these homes, in the state of Maine. So are we seeing real estate double every 2 years, or are you just finding out more that were already in existence? You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I think it's a mixture of both. I think I'm finding new ones that had already been operating, but they are at a point where they're building themselves new facilities that are more suited to what they need.
So I'm glad that he asked this question because it allows any speculator to have an answer for a question they might have been thinking is this number something you just kind of just pulled out of a random bag? Is this something you're just making up? Because I think he is sort of making that number up. He's kind of speculating on that. So anyone that was picking up on that and feeling any type of way about that number now gets to sort of see that he is sort of just going with the flow. He's kind of just saying that just to say it, which isn't great. It's not something that's creditable or is something that is going to make people feel confident in what else that you're saying, but it is something that is honest and is something that goes a long way when you actually show that side. So I felt like this question was much needed.
They're building facilities that are larger, that are more industrial in nature and are closer to the I-95 corridor, and have better security. And in part, I think that's
What kind of security?
I mean, gates, security cameras, motion sensors. There's some that I've been to where, maybe 40 feet before you drive past the foot of the driveway, you pass a motion sensor and lights go on at the end of the driveway.
Okay, so we're not talking about
Kinda
armed.
No,
security.
I've never seen people carrying guns. I've heard stories from neighbors about them being alarmed by hearing target practice and gunfire. I've never seen anyone armed with guns. I've been chased off a lot of sites by angry guys driving black Toyotas. They all love black Toyotas for some reason. I don't know what it is. They love Toyotas.
So the interesting thing about Maine is it is very democratic. It is definitely a very interesting place where I do not believe that open carry is something that you will see often, if at all. I'm not too sure about that, but I grew up in Massachusetts. So what I do know is Maine has always been a little bit more relaxed than Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, you will not see any open carry. It's just not something you will see unless it's like a law enforcement officer. It's just not going to make sense. It's just like New York. New York's one of those places that you just won't see guns often unless it's on a cop. But I mean, in a place like Maine, it is democratic, and what I mean by that is the fact that they potentially all are driving around in these similar cars. They all are sort of aligned. These people are very much in a community. They are people who obviously get along very well, but there is also some chaos that goes on in that place that is kind of just kept underground. It is definitely sort of the democratic version of, well, I can't say that because I think that Humboldt's pretty democratic too, but I would say that it's a little bit like that in a way, where Maine is sort of the wild west for that group, which isn't necessarily a good thing at all. But the fact that the open carry situation sort of could be the reason for this. I wouldn't say that people are definitely trying to test their luck. It's not a place like Florida now. Like Florida is open carry. People are allowed to walk around with AKs. People are allowed to have guns out, and it's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out. But I would say that a place like Maine, it's not surprised that there isn't armed security. I would be sort of surprised if there was, which I have heard that is the situation where in some of the places in the woods in California, there's these guerrilla grows where people will have armed security there, but it's a guerrilla grow where it's literally shit can go wrong at any moment. So you sort of just need a gun. You might run into an animal, you might run into any type of situation that it makes sense why these guys would have guns out. But when these people have a big facility and have the opportunity of having real security that is going to allow them chances of maybe cleaning up evidence if the right people come, if the wrong people come, clean up evidence too. You know what I'm saying? So it's a situation that is definitely more hush hush for smart reason, but it also allows a lot of chaos to stir because people are a little bit unwilling to speak up for themselves or speak against what they're already making a lot of money doing.
But they, by and large, don't flaunt firearms. I've heard, I have some sources who have done work on these properties because once in a while it's necessary for them to interact with white contractors if they need propane work, for example, if they need electrical work. There are some things that they can't do themselves. They prefer to do all of their handiwork themselves because it doesn't allow, eyes peeping into what might be happening there. But I've heard, stories about large grows in very rural parts of the state where there are an abundance of military-age men dressed similarly. Not in. It was described to me as fatigues, close crop hair, and one of the things like an electrician, for example, will do when they're installing 400 amp service at a barn in rural Maine. So they'll go inside and do load testing to try and make sure that everything's worked out. And this individual told me, when he tried to go inside to do load testing, which is something he's done hundreds of times at all of the properties that he's visited, two Chinese guys grabbed him, stopped him and said no, and physically escorted him off the property and stuffed two $100 bills in his back pocket and said, coffee money, coffee money, coffee money, and pushed him off the property. And we've had, a lot of stories like that of technicians being met at the driveway of facilities and told they can't enter, even though they'd been called to help service some kind of electrical need. There've been a lot of.
So as you can see, they're talking about how the electricians are basically getting paid off for when they have to do the checks on the house, which is very interesting. Very, very interesting. I imagine this only can fly in a democratic state. They're not going to be able to do that in a state that's going to be a little bit more enforcing, a state that's going to be a little bit more heavy on the enforcement of actually checking up on these places and making sure it's actually thoroughly checked. Maybe even having body cams on the people who are doing it. But the fact that they're saying basically use this as coffee money means that it is obviously something that's being instructed to them. It's something they're told to do. It's not just some situational thing where some people are just doing it. It's definitely something they're seeing happen commonly, and it's going to be something that is not solved if the people that are running that state have no care about it. So as we see right now, it's been happening for years and years and years. But what the hell do they even do to stop it, to prevent it from happening? Not much. It's one of these things that they kind of just don't even want people to speak about. But also, one thing that's very important, if you are someone who's trying to grow weed, having that knowledge of being an electrician is something that goes a long way. A lot of handymen that get into growing end up going a long way, and it's something that is definitely a cool side hustle or whatever you want to make it. It's definitely something that could go a long way if you have that knowledge of handiwork, or especially electronics. If you're someone who's let me take that back, not electronics, but if you're an electrician, electronics could be heard in a different way, where you're just good with laptops and all that, which only would do good in the marketing of it, in my opinion. But this is definitely something that goes a long way. If you have that, if you're an electrician, I've seen people do a lot of work for different growers, and it is something that is going to be very much in need, because a lot of growers are not going to want to just go to some random who might look at it as a potential lick. They want to go to someone who's working with these big dogs, who they can feel confident that they're not going to try to set them up or do any goofy shit, overprice them because they think that they have leverage on them or anything. It is something that is definitely a tricky part of the game that is not really spoken about, but maybe we'll do a video about that.
I would say alarming stories, and there's definitely a pattern of co-location with sensitive infrastructure and military facilities in Maine. But Maine doesn't have enough military facilities to really say for sure whether it's a pattern or if it's just that there are Chinese marijuana grows everywhere. And there's a total paralysis on the part of law enforcement to recognize that this is a phenomenon that is exclusive to Chinese guys from New York and Massachusetts who speak Cantonese, have, maybe they have green cards or citizenship, but they have historical ties to China. But a lot of them are straight illegal aliens, or they'll claim asylum after they're caught at an illegal marijuana site. None of them want to be called, racists or accused of profiling. And I sympathize with that. And they should not be racist, but they also shouldn't blind themselves to the fact that this is a transnational criminal conspiracy aided and abetted by the Chinese Communist Party. Mm-hmm. It's a huge part of the equation. If you ignore that, you're fighting this with, both hands behind your back. And we've had, the state has had no help whatsoever from state leadership or the state police in combating these cartels. It's been almost exclusively county sheriffs and local police, and in a few instances, national DEA.
No shit. Nobody's on this except the locals, huh?
And even in many cases, not the locals.
So this is very interesting to me. Of course, they do mention how the people in the state do not want to really say anything because they don't want to come off as racist. And I feel like that is definitely a flaw within the Democratic Party. They don't want to say anything that might label them as racist, even if it is something that they truly believe. For whatever reason, they're trying to get an up on the Republicans. They're trying to make people think that they think a different way than they really do, which to me is just evil. So I don't know. When it comes to this whole thing, I am genuinely just so surprised it's taken so long for anyone of a high status to do a video about this, because it's a problem that is huge. It's massive. I've heard people hint at it many times. I think I've even heard Joe Rogan speak about it potentially, but it's always been something that no one's just went in depth about and tried to stop. It's something that is just going to keep happening, and it's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. And when it comes to the Chinese buying out all this farmland, that's something that I've always been very curious on, is like, if they're going to be doing these slave projects where they actually apparently have slaves working for them in these houses in Maine, then what would they be doing with all this farmland? Would it just be for making some whatever? Would it be them just trying to farm some type of fruit or vegetable? Would it be them trying to farm animals? I don't think so. I don't think that would make a lot of sense. I think it would be much more wise for them to use that land to harvest either cannabis or any of these other things that people are very much addicted to at the moment. People are very into kratom. People are into all of these different things that are going to make them more of a slowed down version of what they really should be. Whenever you're out of your elements like that on something that is going to completely blur you from what you actually feel and what you actually want to say, it's no good. It's not good at all. So it's very tricky, very, very hard for anyone to fully really break down. But I want to show this one final video to kind of just sum it all up, because I feel like this is a great representation of what I'm actually trying to stop, what I think is a really big problem in Maine. So let's show it.
Possibly even hundreds of illicit grow operations that continue to crop up across our state, leaving law enforcement scrambling to crack down on them. Good evening, everyone. I'm Amanda Hill.
And I'm Brian Yacono. Local sheriff's departments have raided some of those operations just in the last few months and have arrested a relative handful of people working in those homes that have been converted into greenhouses.
And now, court documents submitted by the FBI and other agencies are giving us a better picture of how these operations are getting started. Here's News Center Maine's Donovan Lynch.
At the Office of Cannabis Policy in Augusta, Director John Hudak faces a growing issue.
The illicit market is absolutely an existential threat.
It's a market fueled in part by an underworld of illegal marijuana growing operations.
So as you can see, it's terrible quality cannabis as well. It's not high-end weed. It's terrible, but they're probably growing it for mass production. I assume they're not really worried about quality at all, which when you are growing for mass production, it's just nearly impossible to get quality. So it's just gonna result in something that looks like this. Yikes.
Possibly hundreds of them scattered in towns and neighborhoods across our state, most with connections to China. Stopping them has become a new top priority.
We've certainly seen an uptick in law enforcement operations and our field investigators.
And as more arrests are made around the state, new information shows how and why so many Chinese nationals have come here to grow cannabis on the black market. Court documents from 2 cases in central Maine show some
So as you can see, it's definitely mass production. They're looking to have this appears to be them selling very cheap flour as well, so I really do wonder how and who would buy this, but at the same time, I don't really have to wonder too much. I can safely assume.
Growers were brought against their will to homes turned cannabis factories. At a bust last month in Penobscot County, a man named Guangxi Yani told police he was approached at a park in Brooklyn, New York by a man offering a meal. He says he was then taken against his will to a grow house in Passadumkeag. In Kennebec County, an affidavit shows residents at a suspected site tipped off law enforcement, saying, quote, "We are imprisoned. We were abducted from China. Passports were confiscated." Still, others seem to join the marijuana operations voluntarily, with a group of suspected growers in Somerset County allegedly saying they came to Maine to, quote, "join the party." All this coming as Maine's leaders press the feds to take a larger role in stopping this.
What is the FBI doing to support local county and state officials?
Well,
So, as you can see, I'm reacting to a video that I've already done, and this is definitely a topic that's been going on for a long, long time, and I do not expect it to be resolved with the people that are in charge of Maine right now. I just can't imagine, but I also can't imagine that it is going to be something that is very tricky for anyone to resolve, because you can't necessarily just pick and choose who you expect to be growing unless you have enough evidence, unless people are helping you gather that evidence. And it appears that in that state, it's not going to be a lot of people who would even see what's going on. There's a lot of space in between properties, and also it's just a lot of people who want to keep safe. They don't want to really bother anybody. They're not trying to throw anyone under the bus, which it makes a lot of sense in that area. It's definitely probably better to just stay out of the way. And it's interesting. It's also allowing this to happen, which is a tricky thing that plays into whenever people are trying to live free. It's not necessarily easy to live completely free. So what is your opinion on this? Do you think that they should just allow this to go on? Do you think that they are supposed to allow this? Or is this something they have to crack down on before it actually does cause the people we have to rely on to not be able to actually do the tasks we need them to do? Say if all of our soldiers are weak, if we have a lot of people who are fat and lethargic and not able to actually complete a task, then what are we? Are we just going to have to submit? Are we going to have to just allow them to run over us? What is your opinion on this? I'm not even sure fully what my opinion is yet, but that's what the fun part about all of this is adventuring through all this, and hopefully we're able to see a positive day in the future with all this. I think it's definitely a very interesting fact that there is slaves in America, and a lot of people want to kick up dust about things that really don't even matter.